Hey, what's going on, Warhammer World? This is Obsidian Anubis. I'm back with another Ninth Age battle report, and this is Game 3 of the OFCC, which is a tournament we held up here in the Pacific Northwest a couple weekends ago. So, this is the third game out of a 5-game tournament. So the first game, I did a 20-0 versus a Lizardman player. In the second game, I lost 5-15 to a Beastman player, although both of those have been fantastic games, and I've really enjoyed playing both of them. And now for the third game, I'm set up against the Warriors of Pestilence. So I'm taking Sharnuk's Horde, which is a desert-themed Orcs and Goblins list, against the Warriors of Pestilence. And you can see them here, that my opponent did a fantastic job of painting them. The real Nurgle green, sludgy, slimy look, but he did it very well, and I think his models look fantastic. So going through my opponent's army, so if we look at just the troops at first, in the back we have a Hell Cannon, which is a modified version of looks like a Nurgle Pestilence demon that has a cannon for an arm, which looks fantastic. Next to that is a Battle Shrine of Pestilence. In front of those is a Blood Beast. Next to that is a group of 36 Barbarians with full command and great weapons. And then in the middle there we see a Wasteland Chariot of Pestilence, of course. Next to that is a group of, it says 40, actually I think that's wrong, I think it's only 20 Wasteland Warriors with full command of Pestilence and Banner of Filth. Next to them is a group of Warhounds, and behind them is another group of 14 Wasteland Warriors with full command and Pestilence. And then there's also a Fallen Beast of Pestilence, which is not shown in this picture. For characters, my opponent had 3 characters. So for the first is the Lord of Chaos, his general, which was placed in the group of Barbarians. Mark of Pestilence has the Pestilence Palanquin. He has the Dueler's Shield, the Ring of Fire, and the Dusk Stone. And then in the larger block of Warriors of Pestilence, he had the Harbinger of Chaos, who was obviously the Mark of Pestilence, Pestilence Palanquin, BSB. He had a Great Weapon and the Talisman of Supreme Shielding. And then in the smaller group of Chaos Warriors, or Warriors of the Dark Guard Warriors, was a level 2 Sorcerer of Pestilence, also on a Palanquin, and that character had the Lucky Shield, the Grounding Rod, and the Talisman of Greater Shielding. So for my army, it's been posted up before the campaign began. It's under the Brush and Fluff video 2, so if you go back you can look at my Brush and Fluff video 2 and I go through my army in detail. For magic, I had the Wild Hunt, the Beast Within, and Inner Rage on my level 2 of Wilderness, and then my Iron Orc wearing the Wizarding Hood rolled up Nature in this battle, and I got Stone Skin, Healing Waters, and the Breath of Life. For my opponent, he got the Breath of Corruption, Mass of Flesh, Fireball, which was actually just a Fireball ring, Pestilent Miasma, Raging Fire, and Necrotic Blessing. So this battle was set up flank attack, where one person is the attacker and one person is the defender. So my opponent elected to be the attacker, I believe, which is the one that bubbles. No, sorry, was the defender, which is the one that bubbles forward. I was the attacker, which bubbles on the flanks. And we took turns dropping our armies off. So here's my opponent's left flank. On the far left, there's a group of 10 dogs. Next to that is that large group of beastmen, or not beastmen, excuse me, barbarians with the opponent's general in it. And then you see the Hell Cannon, and the smaller group of Wasteland Warriors, and the larger group of Wasteland Warriors, the Chariot, the Shrine, and then the Blood Beast on my opponent's right-hand flank. And then for me, I kind of elected to place all my troops on the left-hand side of the battlefield. So you can see I have my Goblins, my Arachnarok, my Feral Giant, my large group of Feral Orcs with my General in it, and my VSB. Then my Boar Boys with my Beast Wizard behind them, and then on my left flank, I have my Iron Orcs that have my level 2 Nature Wizard in this particular battle, my Get Launcher, my Spiders, and my Goblins. So we took turns deploying, and my opponent finished deploying first and got the +1 to going first, and my opponent rolled higher than I did. So Warriors of Pestilence, turn 1. So for movement, my opponent just kind of moved up fairly cautiously. He didn't overextend himself, I don't think, at least not on the left-hand flank. On the right-hand flank, my opponent moved up much more aggressively to get around this gigantic stone that was kind of in the center of this battlefield. In Magic Phase, my opponent got off Massive Flesh, is what that says, even though it's a blurry picture, on his Wasteland Warriors, or his barbarians. I let this through because this gave them 5-up ward save and they were, or 5-up regen, and they weren't my primary targets for this turn. So I went ahead and let my opponent have that, but managed to stop the rest of his spells. And that brings us to Sharnuk's Horde, turn 1. All right. So for movement, this is a very aggressive army, so I moved up very aggressively in the center and then kind of on the right flank. I didn't move up quite as aggressively, just kind of moved up my goblins to kind of threaten my opponent. You can see my spiders are actually turned around. That's because they're waiting for my opponent to bring up that uh, pestilence beast that can come on turn 2 or whatever on any side of the board. So I wanted them there to protect my Git launcher. In shooting phase, my force goblins took shots at my opponent's dogs and killed 4 of them, causing a panic check, which they started to run. In magic phase, there wasn't anything of significance, and that brings us to the end of turn 1. So you can just a picture of what it looks like. So that brings us to Warriors of Pestilence, turn 2. So on my opponent's right flank, once more, he moved up quite aggressively, moving all 3 of his large beasts or shrines all around to kind of encompass my entire goblin group. In the center, my opponent moved up fairly hesitantly. I'm kind of lucky because of these 2 rocks. My opponent can't fit all of his troops in between them. You can kind of see that one block of Wasteland Warriors is being pushed out because it just can't fit in between these 2 rocks. My opponent did rally his dogs, and so they rallied this turn as well. In Magic Phase, once more, my opponent got Master Flesh off on his warriors. I let this through because I wasn't planning on... There were other spells I wanted to stop, so I went ahead and let this through. My opponent also managed to get Fireball off on my Giant, and I believe caused 1 or 2 wounds on him. And my opponent also got off Breath of Corruption, which is basically a breath weapon for that opponent, I believe. So it's not a great magic phase on my turn. I didn't manage to stop my opponent very well at all. But that brings us to Sharnuk's Horde, turn 2. Alright, so because my opponent got all those spells off on the Barbarians, I decided not to move forward and kind of more just... Well, I moved up, but not nearly as aggressively as I did the first turn. I wanted to kind of let my opponent's spells wear off before I move into contact. In Magic Phase, I did, however, manage to get the Beast Within off on my Feral Orcs, so that was definitely a bonus. And then in shooting, my Goblins moved up, as you can see, closer on the right-hand flank to the War Shrine, and they released all 3 of the Fanatics. All 3 of them hit it and went through it, and you can see my opponent is like just about ready to go ahead and just pick up his Shrine because it was killed, but I rolled my attacks and not a single wound. Three Mad Gets on 1 target and not a single wound. It was devastating when I saw that. I'm like, the dice gods had turned on me. It hurt. So that brings us to Warriors of Pestilence turn 3. So because my goblins had been overextended and the Madiots did absolutely nothing, my opponent of course charged in with all 3 of the Chariot, the War Shrine, and the Blood Beast into my goblins. On my left flank, my opponent charged in with his dogs. I did a stand and shoot and managed to kill 1 more before they made it in the combat. And in Magic Phase, once more, my opponent managed to get Massive Flesh off on his Barbarians. I think I tried to stop this one, but I couldn't quite stop it. In close combat, yeah, with the Chariot and the Shrine and the Blood Beast, my goblins got ran down to a man. I think the Blood Beast is the one that actually ended up catching them, broke them, ran them down, slaughtered them, which makes some sense. I mean, it is a Blood Beast. They are goblins. They aren't meant to be strong. I'm a Feral Orc. I should know this. I shouldn't probably put goblins on the flank. So that was my mistake, but oh well. What you gonna do? The goblins. So that moves us to Sharnuk's Horde turn 3. So in movement phase, I started moving up my Iron Orcs, my Feral Orcs, and my Giant to kind of counteract his bubble that he had created on his side. You can also see that I moved the Double D-Rock to the flank of the Chariot so that on my turn I could get a flank charge or probably a charge of some sort on the Chariot depending on how my opponent decided to try to move him. You can see on the left-hand side of this picture my Force Goblin is just on the top side of the little rock there. So in close combat last turn, my Goblins broke the dogs in combat and chased and ran them down. So in this turn they just started moving up and just started picking at the Barbarians because they don't have any armor. In Magic Phase, my opponent dispelled Beast Within off on my Feral Orcs, but I managed to get Stone Skin off instead, which is better defensively, not as good offensively, but still a great spell to get off. In Shooting Phase, my Get Launcher decided to misfire and break for the rest of the game, so that happened. And that brings us to Warriors of Pestilence turn 4. So my opponent had finally gotten tired of this dancing around, so he went ahead and charged in with his large block of Wasteland Warriors into my Feral Orcs. I think he also attempted to charge his Barbarians into my Iron Orcs, but either they couldn't make it and they failed, or he just didn't roll high enough and they didn't make it in. I can't remember which one happened. On my opponent's right flank, you can see that he moved his Blood Beast and his War Shrine around. He moved his shade around a little bit, but there's no way he can move it to get it out of my line of sight of my double D rock. So in the end, he decided just to leave it where it was, just to sacrifice it and let it so that I had to keep going. So his other two War Shrine and Blood Beast would be out of sight. You can also see that the Beast, whatever the Pestilence Beast is called, came on. Because my Get Launcher decided to break last turn, my opponent went ahead and just put it on this more towards my Boar Boys, since the Get Launcher was basically busted anyways. So in close combat, yeah, I think the Wasteland Warriors went the same speed to me as the same time as I did. I think we both weapon skill initiative 3. So, but with that toughness buff, yeah, my opponent barely got any wounds through. I think my opponent did a total of 1 wound because my toughness was, I think, what, 6 for the army for the Feral Orcs, and he just couldn't cause a wound. Me on the other hand, I mean, orcs in first round combat are not pleasant to be with anyways, and frenzied orcs even less so with the frenzy extra attack. So yeah, I ended up wiping out. I sacrificed my champion for his general, or his BSB actually. I think that one is. That actually might be his general. The BSB may be in with the warriors because that one looks like it has a flag. Can't remember. Anyways, so I ended up sacrificing my champion to his character. So my champion in that unit did die. But then I just massacred his Warriors of Pestilence. I think I took off at least half of them, if not more. My opponent auto broke, and being frenzied, I had to pursue. So that's how what the battlefield looked like at the end of the Warriors of Pestilence turn 4. So that brings us to Sharnuk's Horde turn 4. Alright, so movement phase, I didn't have too much movement. I charged my Arachnarok into the flank of the chariot. My Feral Orcs had kind of clogged up the gap, so my Iron Orcs couldn't do anything, so they just turned to face the new beasts, the Blood Shrine and the Blood Beast and the War Shrine, and as well as my Boar Boys, they did the same. They kind of turned around to face them. I did charge my Giant into my opponent's other Wasteland Warriors. In Magic Phase, I managed to get the Beast Within off on my Feral Orcs. Yeah, there's the charge with the Arachnarok Spider. The Arachnarok Spider went in, broke it, it ran away. I chased it and I just destroyed it. So I did manage to kill it. Did manage to get its points. Because it did break from combat though, my Arachnarok was now way out of the fight. It was quite a bit farther away, so it would take a couple turns for it to get back into combat. Here's that charge with the Giant into the other Wasteland Warriors, and you can see I turned my Iron Orcs around as well as my Boar Boys to turn and face my opponent's new threat. In close combat, my opponent had great weapons, so I was going to swing first. He issued a challenge with his BSB, I believe. In this case, I took it on my general because he had toughness 6, or toughness 7 now with the additional Beast Within spell. Even that, my opponent did manage to put 2 wounds on my general. I think this was mainly just because my terrible luck at rolling, because I had a 2-up, 6-up, and I just could not pass a single save to save my life. In return, I think I did manage to put a couple wounds onto his BSB, but I know I did not kill it. However, in close combat, my opponent managed to kill 3 of my Feral Orcs, and I killed off, 3, 6, 9, 12, 13 Barbarians. You can just see I cut that unit in half in just one turn. Obviously, my opponent auto-broke. Again, being Feral Orcs, I had to give chase, caught them, and then ran into the last group of Wasteland Warriors. So that brings us to Wasteland Warriors of Pestilence, turn 5. So in movement phase, my opponent charged my boar boys, which I had kind of thrown up there as chaff, with his war shrine, his blood beast, and his pestilence beast, which is a name I don't remember. So those boar boys are not long for this world, but I mainly kind of threw them there in chaff to protect my wizard, who I cared more about. My opponent also decided to go ahead and charge his Hell Cannon into my Feral Orcs, as he, based on previous battles, he didn't think his Warriors of Pestilence would be able to hold up to my Feral Orcs, which was a probably smart assumption. My opponent did manage to get a massive flesh off on the Wasteland Warriors, however, though, so they will be getting a 5-up regen save as well as the armor save. In close combat, these three easily wiped out the Feral Boar Boys and overran the beast at the bottom of this picture, whose name I don't remember. It actually ran over into my Iron Orcs. The other two stopped an inch short. And then in close combat with the Hell Cannon and Warriors, once more his character issued a challenge. This time I accepted with my BSB, because my Lord was only on 1 wound left, so I figured I'd risk my BSB. My opponent did manage to do 1 wound to me, and I don't think I did any wounds to his Sorcerer. But in close combat, again, I lost 2 Feral Orcs, and he lost his whole back rank plus a couple. So I think this was not an auto break from my opponent, but it was a fail, and my opponent did fail, and without a BSB he didn't get the reroll. So this unit broke. I, obviously being Feral Orcs, had to give chase and overran and wiped this unit out as well. So yeah, at this point I just felt so bad for my opponent. I mean, Feral Orcs are nasty, but when they just keep getting these overruns, and because I got my opponent's troops one at a time instead of all together, I just hit one, killed it, overran, hit the second, killed it, overran into the third. It was sad. I mean, I really was feeling bad for my opponent at this point, because it's hard to watch your 3 big blocks just get wiped out turn after turn. It was hard. This brings us to Sharnuk's Horde turn 5. So, with nothing else to do, I went ahead and turned around my Feral Orcs, ready to come at these beasts. My Iron Orcs, in Magic Phase, I managed to get the Beast Within off on my Iron Orcs. And yeah, so they easily made quick work of the beast that had overrun into them, overran into the Blood Beast, I believe, because they would detect both the Blood Beast and the Shrine were at the same. They were both an inch away, but because I could overrun into the Blood Beast, I overran into that one, and my opponent just decided to call it there because it was turn 5, and he knew that these Iron Orcs with the Beast Within were just going to crush them on his turn. Even though he would get his War Shrine in the next turn, he was done. Which I honestly can't blame my opponent. It was bad. So this is more or less what it looked like at the end of the battle. So it's a real fun game. Honestly, it was probably my least fun game at the tournament. That's not to say anything against my opponent. My opponent was a fantastic guy. His army was amazing. It was just he had a string of bad luck, and so my Feral Orcs just ended up running right through his lines. So really, it wasn't him at all. It wasn't me at all. It was just the luck of the game. It just really turned against us both, actually, really. So this did give me a 20-0 victory against my opponent. So MVP, I have to give it to the Sharnuk's Desert Horde. Feral Horde, the big group of ferals. I mean, they won the game right there by just running into those three blocks and just wiping them out each time. So I mean, they definitely had an assist with the Beast Within and Stone Skin, which definitely I think made it possible so that I didn't lose any. But yeah, it was a great game. My opponent was fantastic, and I really enjoyed his army. His army was one of the best painted armies there. But unfortunately, this game was just not to. The luck gods did not shine on him today, and it just didn't go well for my opponent. But I'd really like to play this opponent again, and even with the same army, just mess up, maybe get rid of that big rock in the middle, so that it can be a bit more of a fair match, so he doesn't have to keep swinging around that. And I think this game would be completely different. I think if we had another go at this, it would be quite a closer rematch. But yeah, that's the end of this. So this is the end of day 1. So I've now had 2 massacre victories and 1 basically massacre defeat. So I'm above halfway at the moment. So I think I'm going to be going on somewhere in the middle for the next game. So yeah, I'll get that video posted up hopefully within the next week or so. But if you guys saw any mistakes I made, please comment. And as always, hit like and subscribe. And as always, game on.